Which backquote WoW skill is secretly super easy to learn. While at my desk job, I wasn't allowed to have my phone, so I started learning origami instead. I got maybe 20 hours of origami practice a week and even use the work's computer paper for it. I've had several girlfriends I've met just by casually turning a piece of scrap paper into a flower at meetings. My husband still has the origami bow tie I made for him out of a dollar bill the first time we met, just trying to impress him. Lolita. 11 years I say. What? That's so cute. Best use of a dollar bill I can think of. Magic. Especially card tricks. The hard part is entertaining people enough so they don't look at the setup. I have found the magic part to be fairly easy. The entertaining part is difficult, which includes performance and acting. The acting bit is almost entirely mime, so I'm studying a bit of mime now. For me it was lockpicking. Was always impressed by it, and then I learned it and realized how really insecure most padlocks are. It gets worse. There's a saying in lock sport that the best pick for any lock is its key. Where it gets dicey is that if you live in a residential area in the US, then statistically, there's likely to be at least 2 or 3 other front doors on your block that are keyed alike with your front door, meaning the key to their house is also the perfect pick for yours. For a long time, nearly every taxi cab in New York City used the same door and ignition keys as did every cop car in New York City. In office buildings with a locked box of keys in the secretary's office. For every cabinet, utility room, etc. in the building, often as many as a third of the keys in that box will be the same key as opens that box. If you can get into the key box, then you don't need to just use the key box key to open the supply cabinet directly. The amount of stuff being keyed alike in the US is ridiculous. We lost our house keys and had a locksmith make us a new one. Turns out it was a master key, essentially, that opened every front door in our whole 100+ house neighborhood. Learning the sky, both day and night, anywhere on earth, day or night, using the sky. I know the cardinal directions. I know most constellations. I know what most of the fuzzy patches visible to the naked eye are in the night sky and can explain them to people. I can give a basic weather forecast by looking at cloud types, as certain clouds are formed by certain effects. This is not a difficult skill. I was doing Nightland Nav in the army using a digital navigation tool, PLUGGR or DAGGR, about 12 years ago, and it died after I found enough points to pass if I got back to the start on time. I asked my proctor if the machine dying was a valid reason to pull my backup compass and map to get back to the start point. No, the only tool you can use is that one. If it's dead, you're sole unless you can fix it. So I looked up, found the dipper and told him, well, I know we were southwestern of the gravel road when it died, and the gravel road meets the main road somewhere to the east and the North Star is there, which means if I go that way I should find the road. Do I need to revive a dead battery or find my next point? He said if you can find it using the F stars, you pass. I passed. I learned how to make basic balloon animals and swords in a few hours, and now all the kids at family parties love me. Make me a bicycle clown. https://tenor.com/view/wedding crashes make me a bicycle clown gif 9,268,771. Shut your mouth, funny guy, and make it. I'm gonna make you a bicycle, but I don't wanna make you a bicycle. Basic clothes mending and altering. You don't even need a sewing machine for a lot of it. In the same vein, basic electronics repair. Very often it's just a wobbly solder joint. I'm a 5'5" guy and 30 length pants are about an inch too long and most stores don't carry any shorter. Got an old sewing machine from a friend. Watched a YouTube video and hemmed all my pants over a few evenings. Also made my shorts a shorter inseam. Since I basically have to hem any pair of pants I buy, now I buy any length off the clearance rack and have saved so much money. 5'6" here. Yeah. Even if you find a 28 feet inseam, the leg tubes are always too long still. Almost anyone can rip a phone book in half. The key is to bend it in a U so that you can separate the pages in the middle ever so slightly. This lets you essentially rip 5 000 individual pages instead of one solid brick. You can master it in about 15 minutes with 2 to 3 books. I used to do it at debate tournaments to assert dominance before the round. This was shockingly effective in a male-dominated nerd-centric activity. In fact, the hardest part of the trick these days is acquiring and then explaining to your audience what a phone book even is. Semi-related, I was heading into a speakeasy bar in New York City recently, and some guys in their 20s were completely lost on how to dial on the rotary phone outside to enter. I had to walk them through it. Lol. I don't mean to challenge your judgment, but I think that phone was a purposeful and intentional gatekeeping strategy by the bar. Learning how to make balloon animals takes about 6 minutes with YouTube and less than $10 for everything you need. If you have little kids, they'll be very impressed. I'm going to try it and see if I can teach my class of 12 yos. You'll be able to do it, and so will they. Just keep your menu simple to start. Make a dog, a sword, maybe a simple hat, and a snake, and call it a day. Splitting an apple in half with your bare hands. For the stid, https://yao2b/zfjmtken_c0 si equals jdnz57ckvz3d1d1f. Thumbs are for gripping, not for ripping. Twisting equals tears. And there it is. As an ADHD person, this entire thread is like crack to me. Agreed. I'm still going. Microsoft Excel. In a few hours you should be able to learn the basics of pivot tables and lookup, which normally lands you the title of Office Excel Guru. I'm an analyst at a financial firm. Pivot tables and lookup are 90% of what I do in Excel. Back in my day they were lookups and lookups, and we were grateful for the directional distinction. You damn youngins and your fancy schmancy either direction lookups are spoiled rotten these days. Oh yeah, I actually started this job using lookup and index match. Someone was like, you haven't heard of lookup? It was a great day. Learn a few card tricks. Basic sleight of hand can be done in an afternoon. Could you recommend a good source to learn from, please? The Royal Road, the greatest source of how to learn card manipulation. I bought it. I like it. But I had a hard time figuring some moves out. Paper is not the best medium to explain third movements in Ho. Or I'm dumb. Definitely not dumb. People learn differently and understand differently. You figured it out, which disproves your end statement. Knots. Yes. Learning the trucker's hitch was the most satisfying thing. The trick is doing it enough for it to be muscle memory. The trucker's hitch is done differently by many, but the way I learned taught me the Bolin, Alpine butterfly, and half hitches. Those 3 alone can get you by in almost any scenario. Really good tutorial right here. https://yao2b/tugtome si equals 9 u at 08 vec1 sn9zn. https://yao2b/tugtome si equals 9 u at 08 vec1 sn9zn. Well, I learned nothing from that, but it was entertaining. Building Excel workbooks. You can learn pretty impressive and useful workbook skills in an afternoon of YouTube videos. I'm always surprised how many people just use Excel to make lists or tables, but don't actually utilize basic features to do anything with those lists or tables. If you know how to use if and the lookup functions, you're basically a wizard already. Hell, if you are able to Google Excel, thing I want to do, and follow the instructions, you're basically already ahead of the curve. Knowing how to use Google to find formula solutions will make you the final boss in Excel. Ian's knot for tying your shoe. I saw a YouTube video 10 years ago and have only used this knot since. I also learned the Ian knot. https://www.youtube.com/watch v=_ozajray01w. It's like a little magic trick you can do with your shoe. Recently, I tried to tie my laces the way I used to and couldn't get my hands to do the motion anymore. I was all excited to try this, and then I remembered I'm retired and don't bother tying my laces anymore. I just leave them tied very loosely and slip on my shoes. Converting to PDF. Sigh. Basic Excel skills and knowing how to format in Word and Pages make some bosses go crazy. Not to mention fixing issues for your coworker that frantically asks you where their bookmarks went or why their screen is sideways because they have a habit of shortcut keying themselves into the weirdest commands. If you want to reach high wizard status, learn to edit a PDF. Mental math. I'm not talking Einstein level formulas flying through your head like that meme. I mean, if someone says something like, hey, what's 11x34? And you rattle off 374 without pulling out your calculator, they think you're a demigod or something. But there's just lots of simple tricks, and once you learn the tricks, it's cake. It still blows my mind that x% of y equals y% of x. And it's such a simple principle. It's just the associative property at heart. Edit. The comment appears to have sparked quite a discussion. As it turns out, the principle holds, because non-zero real numbers form an abelian group under multiplication. So you need both associative and commutative properties. Commutative. Juggling 3 balls. Looks impressive. But you can learn it in a weekend. I went to visit my long-distance girlfriend at her college. I was able to learn to juggle from some of her friends in a few hours before she got back from class. Was pretty awesome when she walked into the dorm and I said, hey babe, check this out. Balancing things on your fingertip. The key is to look at the very top of the object. You're only a broken window or 2 away from balancing stuff on your face. Brooms, chairs, ladders. Owen Wilson impersonation. Wow. Damn. You nailed it. Moonwalking. I learned it when my kids were really young. Just to make them laugh. It's all just a rhythm of the feet. You can get it down in an hour or so. I like to do it randomly when I leave a room. Learning to read other scripts like Greek or Cyrillic, Russian. You don't even need to speak a language that uses it. I don't. But just being able to read them a little bit is so useful. Suddenly you see these letters everywhere. And half the time you know what it says because it's so similar to a language you already speak. And people think it's super impressive when it actually takes very little time. Just some occasional practice to learn. Also, runes. Super cool. Super easy and quick to learn how to write and read. I'm married to a Belarusian man who speaks Russian, but I've only learned how to read Cyrillic so far. And very few words. The other day, my boss, who is a part-time artist, was looking up this art material on Pinterest. But it was written in Cyrillic. Since you couldn't select the text, I read it and wrote in the Latin alphabet form in Google Translate to help her. It was a very specific situation, but I was helpful with this weird skill. You can learn like 5 chords on the guitar and play a shitload of songs. Anyways, here's Wonderwall. Gets kicked off stage by Billy Joe Armstrong. Cooking fancy looking meals. I used to think restaurant quality dishes required culinary school, but nope. A decent knife, some garlic, and knowing when to add salt makes you look like a total chef. My boyfriend still thinks I'm this amazing cook because I can make risotto, but it's literally just stirring rice and adding stock slowly. It's not that cooking risotto is difficult, but having the patience to make risotto is what makes you an amazing cook. Patience might make a good chef, but butter makes them huge. Watching Kenji Lopez Alt finishing up a dish goes, and at this point in the recipe, if I was at my restaurant, I would throw a whole stick of butter in. But if you're cooking at home, you can leave it out rarely. The secret to restaurant food being so tasty is a boatload of butter. Lol. Spinning yarn and crochet. The basics are pretty easy and you get better fast with practice. Plus, stuff that looks really complex is usually just the basics in various fancy configurations. Basic knitting is the same way. There's really only 2 stitches you need to know, and the rest builds on that. Close bracket. Kitting mobs as the hunter. Lol, as a WoW player that's how I read the question too. I haven't played in 10 years, but that's still where my mind went. 15 years for me, and I still went there. I never played World of Warcraft and that's what I thought of. Rubik's Cube. I agree with you here. Learned it over 40 years ago and still impress people every time. I'm not one of those 30-second solvers. Wish I was, but always a minute or 2. I could get around 1 minute consistently, and I wanted to get under 1 minute. CFOP is probably 3 to 4 times more learning and memorizing than just the basic algorithm to solve. But if you learn the first 2 steps, it does reduce your time without any algorithms. Just a little more paying attention and less cookie cutter algorithms. //+1. Same story. I never went to one locale. But even with 2 locale, which is only like 10 algorithms/patterns, you can get down to 30 to 40 seconds without too much trouble. Reading Korean. Hangul. The writing system is incredibly simple and learner friendly. You'd think it was developed as one of those artificial languages designed to be easy to learn. Except this is a real language with millennia long history. Basically each tiny sign is a sound, which represents roughly the position of your mouth and tongue to pronounce it. That makes it easy to memorize already, and then you form 2 to 3 sound characters by combining them. The main difficulty is learning how to pronounce and distinguish their vowels. There are 10 of them. That is, aside from actually speaking and understanding the language. The story is cool too. They basically used Chinese characters up until the 15th century or so. Then their emperor at the time basically said, now this S is whack, and had this super simple writing system devised. The story is cool too. They basically used Chinese characters up until the 15th century or so. Then their emperor at the time basically said, now this S is whack, and had this super simple writing system devised. Meanwhile Japan went the complete opposite direction. While Chinese characters tend to have one primary pronunciation, Japan decided putting like 20 different possible pronunciations. Looking at you was a good idea,